extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 47 years ago, stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show, and I am Craig L. Hayes. So, on the show earlier that I did this morning, we're talking about wannabe President Harris. And just exactly a little bit about her. But let's look at a little bit at what's going on with Biden. Let's look at a couple things on why, on why this is such an important election. You know, we hear the terms all the time, this is the most important election of our lifetime. You know, we've been hearing that probably for 200 and almost 50 years. Every election is the most important election of our lifetimes. Because it's what's happening right now. And is are the things we're going to do as far as casting a ballot going to change the direction of this nation and possibly the direction of this world? Yes, every one of these elections have something to do, and fallout or collateral damage happens around the world if we are not strong, if we are not powerful, if we are not a bastion of freedom, if we're not that city on the hill, if we're not a light to the rest of the world, then collateral damage begins all around this planet we call home. We're seeing that today, mainly because we have such a feeble, senile, old man as president who should have never been there. So how do we figure on this next election, what are we going to do? You know, I watched a lot of different newscasts from Newsmax, Turning Point, all these different places. And I listened to all these different highlights. And Blaze is another favorite of mine to listen to a few of their people. Some of the smartest people in the world are on that network. And I was just happened to be just sitting there listening to Steve Deace. And Steve Deace just asked a simple question as I was walking around and doing stuff. And he said, what's the country going to look like the day after the election? And I went, holy cow, that's a great question. Or or we could ask this simple question. The day after either President Trump is inaugurated or President Harris is inaugurated, what is the country, and by that, what is the world going to look like? What is going to happen throughout this world? If the U.S. takes a course where it's business as usual with what we have today, a senile, demented old man who's feeble and does not project any strength anywhere in the world. And he's followed by his vice president, a woman who hates this country, is a Marxist, is a pro-Islamist, hates Israel, hates the Constitution, hates the Bill of Rights, unless it secures her right to say stupid stuff. And on top of that, she is the dumbest vice president, the most intellectually challenged. You know, the term used to be, and it's become offensive, I don't even know why, mentally retarded, practically, vice president we've ever had. What is this nation, and what is the world going to look like after the next president is sworn into office? Perhaps we should take a little look at that, and that's what today is going to be. We're going to take and look at what happened. We all know now that Nancy Pelosi was the one who orchestrated the coup against Joe Biden. We all know that she's the one that was the point person on it. And now we know that she was the one that wants Tim Walz to be the vice president. She was the one. I don't know if she's not smart enough to do a lot of this, because she's another dumb one. Politically savvy, but dumb. Crazy old lady. She probably has lots of cats. I'm not sure about that part. But anyhow, some people were saying it was Obama. It may very well have been Obama pulling the strings, but Obama is at least smart enough. He didn't want his fingerprints on it in front of the American people. So, who does he get to do the dirty work that needs to be done? Of course, he's going to get a lackey. He's going to get somebody to do this for him. After 3.5 years of everybody except the Democrats, the media, and other people knowing that this guy, Joe Biden, was a walking disaster, a feeble, senile, demented old man that they denied he was all these things for the last 3.5 years, they finally pushed him out. Why would they? Here's a question for us. Why would they want a debate in July? In July, before anybody had their convention, the political parties, the GOP hadn't had their party convention. Democrats hadn't had their party convention. So the candidates that were going to debate had not been affirmed by the party that they were the ones that were going to be the candidates. Why did they do it so early when they usually try to do these things somewhere around September and into October? Why did they do it a couple months early? I give to you my belief. This was all part of the coup. This was all part of pushing Joe Biden out. They needed him to go. They knew he was going to be a failure. He had a failed presidency up to that point. And they knew he wasn't there mentally, physically, any way, shape, or form. And they needed him gone. So what better way is to have them push for a debate to get that point out there, knowing he was going to be disastrous. And the calls from the party would just grow. And on cue, the lights from the party. I shouldn't say the lights. The uh, email from the party to all of the media controlled by the Democrat Party. You know, ABC, NBC, CBS, PBS, CNN, MSNBC, Wall Street Journal, not Wall Street, Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times, you know, almost every single newspaper and almost every single news outlet, all unified on cue with many party leaders. It was like everyone got the call and said, it's go time now. Start talking about getting him out of there. And just like the good soldiers that the Main Street media, or I should say the leftist media, you know, the Pravda, the Democrat Party controlled media, whatever you want to call them, they did it on cue along with several congressmen, ladies. And then more started growing. The number started growing. They started having more people join in for the call for him to step down. But nobody that was really of any high rank at that point. Anybody who was saying this wasn't going to be a Speaker of the House. They were still supporting Joe Biden. Anybody who was going to be the head of the majority party in the Senate for the Democrats whenever they have power, they didn't call for it. These people were holding back. The Pelosi's, the Jeffries, the Schumers, they were all stepping back and holding back on this stuff. So they let the youngsters, those of low rank, start the ball rolling. And then they, at a certain point, that is when the Nancy Pelosi's, the Clintons, whoever else was in that room with them, went up to Joe Biden and said, it's really simple. You're stepping out. What do you want? But you're going to tell everybody you're stepping out because you don't want to drag the party down in the races all around the country. And Joe Biden got to name his price. He got to name what he wanted. The world may never know, especially this country may never know, all of the things, the promises, from money to influence to anything else that Joe Biden was going to get for stepping out of the way. And so finally he did. Whenever we saw a very interesting thing in Las Vegas, you always wonder in negotiations with unions, and I've worked out of the Stagehands Union, IATSE Local 720 for 44 years. And in negotiations with the hotels, you always would have some lawyers. You'd always have our side of the bargaining team, the management side of the bargaining team, and you would sit down and you'd start hashing out all these different things that were going on. And on our side of the table, as far as the unions go, you kind of look around and go, which one of these people, because you had Hilton Corporation, you had MGM Corporation, you had Circus Corporation, you had all these corporations, their attorneys there, hashing out details and what, wish lists and what was going to happen. And you always had to look around and go, which one on this negotiation is the big dog? Which one is going to be the one that says, here's what's going to happen, here's what we're going to do, this is all we're going to do, end of story, take it to your members and see if they'll go along with it. In the 70s, it was MGM Corporation. MGM had a lot of influence, Kirk Kerkorian's people. And they'd go on for days and weeks about negotiations on all kinds of aspects of the contracts for everybody. And then finally, somebody out of that corporation would say, okay, here's what it's going to be. Boom. And what we're going to do is agree to this and this and this, and everyone goes back to work, and everyone gets going, and Vegas is good, and everyone shakes hands, walks out the door. Members agree on it, they get their paychecks, boom, everything's finished. Earlier, my grandfather, Lee Hayes, would do negotiations with the hotel owners directly, with Bugsy Siegel, with all these different hotel owners, that were basically the heads were running these hotels for the mob families in Chicago and New York and Kansas City and other places. Those negotiations usually took less than an hour. Grandfather would sit down with whoever was in charge of that hotel and say, we're working and we're making this much money working in your hotel. We'd like to make this much. And he'd have a chance to explain what's going on, why they thought my fellow union people were worth this kind of money. And the hotel owners would say, that's a little bit much, but we will agree to this, and explain their side. And they'd talk a little bit longer, then they'd stand up, shake hands, the deal was done. Your next check, you had that money on there, the pay raise. Going back to the hotels today, there's always a big dog somewhere in the room or somewhere in the next room. In the late 90s, the big dog was Hilton. Hilton was the boss at that time. And once Hilton said, we've come to an agreement, everybody fell in line. And everybody else agreed to it. And everybody went along with it. That's what we're seeing today with what's going on with Joe Biden. Everybody got to have their little piece. They got to say their things. They got sent into the room to have their little talks. They all got to do it. But finally, Mr. MGM or Mr. Hilton, whoever you want to call the person that went into the room, and we'll just say it was Nancy Pelosi. She was the messenger, I think. We still don't know who the real boss is. I suspect, in all honesty, it was either Bill Clinton, but he's got waning influence in the party, or it was Barack Obama, who was the one that called the shot and said, Nancy, go in there and talk to this guy and tell him he's out. Give him whatever he wants, but he's out, and we got to get going with somebody else. So here we are today with the most undemocratically elected Democrat candidate for president. That's the most amazing thing I think you could ever imagine. You can't write books on this, fantasy books or, intrigue spy novels or anything like that. But here we are. So, we'll go back to the original premise of this discussion today. What is our country going to look like after either the election or after the inauguration? We have lots of enemies throughout this world. We have lots of people who hate us and have been watching us and taking advantage of having a weak, feeble, dementia-ridden, senile president. Would Russia have ever tried to go into Ukraine if they didn't have such a person in our White House? Would China be rattling its swords all over the place, all throughout the China Sea and Southeast Asia, from Vietnam, Philippines, Japan, all over that area, and making threats to Taiwan if we had a strong president? Of course not. Would Iran, who was crippled, basically Donald Trump had crippled them financially, they were about to collapse, would they have been able to find the funding, resources, abilities to start a war with Israel in Gaza? Or how about the Houthis? These are all people, or Hezbollah. These are groups funded by Iran because of Joe Biden. Had it been for Donald Trump, had been allowed to stay in office for 4 more years and not been removed from office by a false election, these things would not have happened. But they did. We have to get past all this and get on to how we're going to fix and solve things and make it so our country isn't destroyed because of this ideology. I have crib notes here. I'd written down a couple things. I just want to see which one I want to talk. And even in asking these questions, who would our enemies prefer to be president on January 21st, 2025? Would China, like one of the dumbest people on the planet, Kamala Harris, who is in line with their ideology as far as Marxism for a lot of things, in there? Oh, yeah. Oh, most definitely they would love to have her in there. Would Russia, knowing that they've gone from a weak, feeble president to a dumb Marxist ideologue, would they like to have her in there? Oh, yes, they would, very much. Because what would happen? China would probably say, hey, we're going to go ahead and take on the parts of this ocean, meaning the China Sea, and we're going to go ahead and take back Taiwan. We're going to take and keep inflicting damage onto Vietnam, the Philippines, and Japan. Because we know that she's not going to do anything. Russia will finally say, we've had it with the Ukrainians, and maybe drop massive loads or maybe even a tactical nuke on Kiev, however you want to say their country, Ukraine, and be done with that problem and finish the invasion and take it over. How about North Korea? How about that little pot-bellied dictator that's there? Will he finally just say, well, it's obviously America's too weak and too feeble to do anything with us, and the person in charge is stupid. We're going to go in and take back South Korea, or cause major problems between Japan and South Korea. And how about Iran? What will stop Iran from peddling its influence even greater now that China and Russia are all together with Iran on weapons deals and other things? What will stop Iran from finally finishing the nukes that they want to develop and using them, number one, which if they ever did, Israel would wipe them off the planet. What's to stop them from continually funding, along with Qatar, all these terrorist groups, and giving Hezbollah tens and tens of thousands of rockets, and whoever's left in Hamas, tens of thousands of rockets, and the Houthis, whatever armament they need to cause the problems that they are. Weakness is exploited. Nature hates a vacuum. Nature does not like a vacuum in power. It does not like a vacuum in any way, shape, or form of any matter, because something will move in to fill that vacuum. Weakness is a vacuum. Not being able to project power around the world, not being able to project stability around the world, not being able to stand with our allies around the world because we don't like some of them, but they're our allies. But when you're a Marxist ideologue such as Kamala Harris, you don't care. It's what you believe is more important than what is the right thing and how to project power around the world and keep stability in the world. Without the United States of America, the world will go unstable and nothing but conflicts and wars will break out. We're seeing that right now. So to say this isn't true and you'd prove yourself to be an idiot or a liar, take your pick. So, let's see my next crib note here. I just don't know where we're going to head with this stuff, and I don't know how we can get people to understand that this election coming up here in just a couple months is not a United States election. It is not an election only for the heart and soul of America. It is an election that will have international and world consequences. We have allowed, or I should say the person running for office along with her boss has allowed 15 to 20 million illegals, many of which are criminals. Probably a lot of them, thousands of them, could be terrorists from other nations waiting for their call to go to cause, inflict pain, destruction, etc. in this nation. Kamala Harris has allowed this, along with her boss, Joe Biden. We do not separate the two of them. The failure of this administration, or the Biden administration, is also the failure of Kamala Harris. She is the one who broke the ties in the Senate to destroy our dollar, cause inflation, not do anything to flex on the border, keeping it wide open to anybody and everybody who'd come through, as hundreds of thousands of Americans every year are being killed and harmed by these people. They just don't care. They don't care that this nation needs to remain strong. Their goal is to take this nation down. You can believe me or you can sit there and say this is crazy. Their goal is to set America no higher or no better than any other nation in the world. They believe that America has gotten too big and uppity for the rest of the world. They would love to see us brought down to a third world status where it's easy to control the people within this nation. They want to make it so that your life isn't dependent on the satisfaction of how far can you go with your life, but will you survive this next day because the nation is being destroyed one day at a time. This is what these people want. This is what the Barack Obamas, the Kamala Harrises, the George Soroses, many of these people who run these major companies, everything from Facebook or whoever else, they want to see us taken down, taken down the ladder a couple notches. And replaced by what? Remember this, nature hates a vacuum. If the United States is not the world leader in freedom, economic, military, technological, medical, all these different powers that we have within this nation, a nation that is only 5% of the world population, if we are not at the top, Who do these people want at the top? I'll give you just a couple seconds to shout out your opinion, and then I'll tell you the answer. Okay, now that you've said probably they want China, they want this, they want that. True, they do. The real answer is, though, they want anybody who runs a country like North Korea, China, Iran, where they want total control over the people's lives. So it could be anybody. But they have also said at the same time that China, the Chinese government, the Chinese role model is the role for the rest of the world that they want to take an effect onto America. The question here is now, are you going to allow it? Are you going to stand by and watch opportunity, liberty, and freedom dissipate and know that your children and grandchildren will never have a life anything as good as you have? Even though life right now is a little tough because of what they've done so far. Can you imagine your children and grandchildren having to live under a government system like China has, or North Korea, or Iran, or Venezuela, or name any third world dictatorship? And that's what we would be, and that's what they want to see. I am not wrong at this. I am not wrong. I know where this stuff is heading. I know what these people are up to. I know why they want Kamala in there. You've heard the terms in politics about people who support certain candidates. The term is useful idiot. Well, how much better would it be to have a president who's a useful idiot? Even more so than Joe Biden. Boy, it's like a blessing to them if they can get that. You may not like Donald Trump. Sometimes he rubs me the wrong way too. Sometimes he just wants to talk and talk and talk instead of getting out there and saying what he's going to do to fix these problems. Donald Trump, please tell people what you're going to do to fix all these problems that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, and Chuck Schumer have inflicted on us. What are you going to do to fix it? We don't care anything about her background, whether she was a black woman or she was a Indian, or we don't care. What are you going to do to fix it? And don't forget to tie her to Joe Biden on everything and why you have to fix it. It's very simple. You may not like Donald Trump, but do you like freedom? Do you want opportunity for your family? Do you want to go back to where you can afford to live and have a good life and take a vacation? Go see sights with your family, go places, go do things, travel as you wish on gasoline that isn't $4, $5, $6, $7 a gallon, and get it back to where it was before Joe Biden and Kamala Harris took over? Get down to $2 a gallon? Do you want to be able to afford to keep your house cool and hot? And in fact, do you want to be able to afford a house? How does anybody afford a $500,000 house fresh out of high school or college or moving on to whatever they're trying to do, their careers? They have destroyed this nation. And they do it, and they'll say they need to even do more. They are admitting they need to do more destruction. Are you going to let them? Or are you going to stand up and fight? How do you fight? How do we do it? We're only a couple people. Yeah, we'll go tell some friends, tell family. Let's get on board. Let's stop this. And the way we do it, we have to overcome the election fraud that's going to take place in just a matter of a couple months. Because believe me, they were very good at it last time. They figured out how to pass all these things in these legislatures and get all these ballot boxes out and all these things to allow after election day vote counting, on and on we go. Really? They figured out how to destroy our election system. And they're going to do it again. So, tell a friend, tell a family member. Find out if your neighbor understands what the consequence is of not